Praise the Lord, everyone. Thank you for tuning in with Dr. Leisha, the preacher. Okay. Okay, guys. So, years ago, I was in a leadership position. And I was in this leadership position for like 8 years or something like that. And it included being involved with families. I'll just put it that way, families. Okay. So, this one particular family, the wife and I became cool. We would share stories with each other of our lives and things like that. We shared something in common. I felt that my marriage forced adoption on me at a time that I wasn't ready. Okay. And to me, it felt like a type of rape. It just did. So she's a married woman. She and her husband are college graduates. I believe she definitely was from the South. I'm not sure about him. But regardless, they're both college graduates. They have professional jobs. They're both making, good money, living in the suburbs. They have one daughter, and their daughter is around like 5 years old now. And one evening, he's out with his friends, his fraternity brothers, and they're out having a good time or whatever. He comes home, wife and daughter are asleep in bed, nothing unusual, you know. He crawls in bed while wife is sleeping. He's buzzed, drunk, whatever, hanging out with the fraternity brothers. This is an educated professional man, so he out hanging out, he come home drunk, crawl in bed with his wife and crawls on top of her. She sleep. Now, I don't know how deep of a sleeper she is, but I think I would notice if my husband was having sex with me, while I was asleep. I don't know. But anyway, this is the story. So she conceives, she gets pregnant. Okay. She felt like her husband raped her and forced her to have a baby because she didn't believe in abortion. Now, with the daughter, she's 5, kindergarten, headed to first grade, whatever. And she was the one that was paying the daycare bill all this time. Okay. So now they have a son, and she's like, well, who's going to pay his daycare bill? This was your choice. I didn't consent to this, and blah, blah, blah. Right. So she and I felt like we had something in common. We felt like we were wronged by our husbands. And we decided to, be friends based on this because we're going to stick this out. You know, we're going to stick this out. And so we did for years. Again, I was in this position for 8 years. So here we are raising these sons together. She had a son, I had a son. And so, you know, we're doing this. Well, over time, um, they decide to divorce. I'm not sure who initiated the divorce, but they decided to divorce. And she asked me to write a letter to the courts on her behalf. For some reason, I think regarding maybe custody, I'm not sure what she was what angle she was coming from, but she felt like a letter from me would help in her case. So I had to really think about the entire situation. I had to let her know that, I will write this letter, of course, but you guys are a family to me. And yes, your husband was wrong that night, you know. So let me work on this letter. As I worked on the letter, and I told her I would show you the letter, of course. She's the one that has to submit it to the court. So, let her see the letter, whatever. But while I was writing the letter, I'm in prayer because, again, this is a family, this is divorce, all of this. I have to really think about this. So I think about how they, from the beginning of their relationship, and of course, I considered the night of rape. And I also considered the fact that she agreed to continue, you know. Um, what he did was wrong that night. Yes, absolutely. Outside of that night, their marriage appeared to be what they wanted to be, what they agreed to be, you know, very professional, very organized, very routine, very, whatever it was that. Nothing I desired, nothing I desired, but, this is them. So I write this letter and I write it in a way where I'm able to give the entire marriage and family credit. I pointed out their strong points as a family and that it grieved my heart that they're splitting up after all this time, after all the sacrifice, after all the work, because we shared stories for years as we were raising our sons, you know. I didn't mention anything about, that night or anything, of course. I didn't go into no detail like that. I just said I thought they were a great family and it grieved my heart that they were splitting up. Although I understood, I understood. And then I was able to give her credit as a wife and mother. I zeroed in on what she needed me to say about her. I was able to speak well of her without um, shitting on their agreement, shitting on that night of his really a crime in the marriage. I didn't, bring that up, but I knew that she needed me to speak from a place of it. So I was able to compliment her and praise her and give her what she needed without the details of, you know, all that crap. And the reason why I'm sharing this story is because in marriage, there's good and bad. And we like to use the good stuff to, benefit our lives. And we like to use the bad stuff to destroy our lives, you know? And I decided in this case, as right as she was, and as wrong as he was that night, with his wife, we could not base the whole divorce on that one night. We had to also give that man credit for everything else they agreed to, everything else that they lived. It was not all bad. As horrible as that night was and the consequences of it, that marriage was not all bad. It was what they agreed to. She made a choice to stay. She could have, aborted, which I wouldn't recommend, and she didn't, thank God. She decided to, endure until many years later, they decided to divorce. They had to sell their beautiful home. He had to go back where he came from, and she had to find another place for she and the children. And all that, happened. She wanted to continue to let her kids stay in the same school district. And, she didn't want the kids to suffer no more than they needed to. You know, she remained single and focused on the kids and her career and whatnot. And he went back to his, old neighborhood and basically and hooked up with somebody new. You know, so again, the reason why I'm pointing this particular story out is because it's not fair to judge anyone solely on their mistakes only, punish them solely on, you know, punish them indefinitely on their mistakes only. In order to judge a matter, you really do have to look at everything, the whole picture, the whole thing. So, like, even in my case, I chose to endure. No matter how dirty I felt like I was done, I chose to stay. I chose to endure. And so, whatever came out of it, came out of it. The good and the bad, you know? So that's what I try to focus on my entire channel here on YouTube. You know, in order to be a restored wife of Most High, I had to have been lost out there. You know, I had to be lost out there in the dark. And in order for him to restore me, he considered everything about me, not just the bad stuff, but Most High considered the fact that I've been good too. And I've been obedient on many, many things. And I allowed myself to live out my consequences, whether good or bad. I lived out my choices until it ran out. Everything has a beginning, middle, and an end point, so to speak. So being fair is very important. It's very important. Look at all the details, the good and the bad. Because sometimes, no matter how dirty a person is, how bad they are, there's still some good somewhere. There's still some good. A whole child came out of that situation. A whole child, a beautiful son. And it was very difficult for her, you know. And even after they divorced, she still had to raise that child, both the children, the one that she agreed to and the one that she didn't have an option. She still loved both her kids and raised them well, regardless, just like I did. No matter how dirty I was done, I still did my job as a wife and a mother, period. So Here's another story. And I have so many others to share. That's just one case of many. That's one thing about being in leadership. And I've been in leadership type positions my entire life. Really, in one way or another. But in this one here, this was a family that needed ongoing guidance, at least 8 years worth. And I was called upon to submit a letter to the courts because of the position I was in. The leadership position I held was, the kind that could carry some weight. And even in my profession, I didn't really get to have a career, but I still held some important positions, part time positions, not paid, mostly positions in my life. Like school board members, a lot of school board members don't get paid. A lot of Girl Scout leaders don't get paid. Um, Substitute teachers, we get paid, but we don't get benefits. You know what I'm saying? So, I've done a lot of stuff that help the community, you know, in leadership type positions without pay. So, I have to be fair. I have to be fair to myself and to the people around me. So on my channel, you will hear me talk about my own good and my own bad. I call my own self out. You know what I'm saying? I confess here, because this is what we should be doing. We should be confessing our faults to one another, and where we believe there's some, resolution or restoration, then we should be pursuing that. I mean, whether it happened or not, that's one thing, like I did a video live the other day talking about, you know, um, I would like for my first husband and his wife to stay together. I'm not saying that they, are in jeopardy or anything, but I'm just speaking positive. I want them to stay together forever and help me with our grandchild. Now, just because that's a desire of my heart and is scripturally bound, sound, doesn't mean that it's going to happen at all. But I can put it out there that I believe is to be true and it's a desire, even if it never happens. I have no evidence or any good reason to think that it will, but that don't mean that it isn't the right thing to do. Okay? So I will continue to share more stories, real stories that's happened in my life that I can prove with documentation and stuff. Um, I will continue to share these stories to show how things could go and perhaps should go in situations out of all fairness, you know? All right, guys, thank you for listening. You all be blessed. Click like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Keep up with your girl. Keep up with me. Yay. And I'm not monetized on here at all. So, if you're led to bless me with an offering, I greatly appreciate it and everything. My PayPal and Cash App is um, Dr. Leisha, Preacha. You all be blessed. I love you. And I'll be back. Bye bye.